how's it going, everybody? It's Lucas here, the resident horror punk, the resident goth from Spanish Announce Table Wrestling Radio Show. We are going to be doing this video live over Facebook. I'm probably not going to look at any of the comments. It's literally just because live videos retrospectively tend to get more clicks and hits than the ones that aren't live. This isn't going to be broadcast live over the radio, YouTube and Twitch like the rest of our live videos normally are. It'll be uploaded to those platforms retrospectively at a later time or date. Obviously, the theme of this video is Double or Nothing 2, the big pay-per-view from All Elite Wrestling. It's a year on. We've had a whole year of AEW. I mean, it's been around more than a year, but it's been a year of All Elite Wrestling programming, or a year of... We've had, we've had a flavour of what All Elite Wrestling is for a year now. And I'm going to be sort of addressing on what we seem to think has been good, what's been bad over the last year, and also the pay-per-view itself as well this weekend, what I think's going to happen, and not necessarily that as well, but more my feelings about the pay-per-view and what is good about it, what we can take from it as wrestling fans. I'm going to bring the card up just to have a quick look, because I know we did discuss it on this week's episode of Spanish Announce Table broadcast over the radio, but we only sort of delved into the main matches. We only really talked about the main matches. That was completely just because of time constraints, really. That was the only reason why we didn't go into things like Shida and the tag matches and things like that. Okay, so I'm going to read it through in the order that I think the matches are going to be in, because in Wikipedia, as we mentioned before, it's in a bit of a weird order. First of all, I just wanted to say, it has been a year of Double or Nothing, or a year of AEW, a year since the first Double or Nothing. It was actually one of my favourite pay-per-views. I did do a post last summertime, and we mentioned it on air, was my top 40 pay-per-views, and some of them were things like the Wrestling Classic back in 1985. Josh's comment there, PWG on budget, I can't really disagree with that. On Josh's point, actually, I was going to bring this up and we may as well mention it now. We had been, by the marketing and the PR, we've been very much led to believe throughout the course of 2019 that we were going to get basically an American version of New Japan Pro Wrestling, or maybe an American version of something akin to Dragon Gate Pro Wrestling, or something like that, but with elements of the Attitude Era, the shock tactics, the sex and violence, the bloodshed, the blood and guts, if you will, of the Attitude Era. So basically, bits of New Japan, but with that 1990s element mixed in. That isn't really what we got. What we actually got instead was more like a high-budget PWG, a high-budget pro wrestling gorilla with elements of WCW thrown in. It is quite different. I quite like the elements of WCW that they're doing. I really, really like that. I just feel that we were promised this product where it would be like Gado was booking it, where the storylines are very intricate, are very cleverly woven, the matches are laden in really intelligent psychology, but it would just have a bit of attitude to it. And instead, we got PWG, we got choreographed spot fest, backflips through tables, springboards, basically with elements of WCW, which is fine. The WCW part doesn't bother me. Actually, that's one of the things I like the most about the product. But it is just, I feel a lot of wrestling fans thought they were going to get an alternative to WWE. And I think for the most part, we really genuinely have. But I do think there is also a case, where we thought the alternative would be what they promised, which was an authentic sports-based product where wins and losses matter. And instead what we've got is lots of highly choreographed matches, very little psychology or nonsensical psychology, which can be quite off-putting. There's the silly humour, which, although isn't for me, it does draw the biggest rating. So, I personally am not a fan of Orange Cassidy, Private Party, that kind of thing, but it does draw a massive rating, or a rating spike at least for AEW. So just because that's not for me, that's doesn't mean it's not popular. But my issue is where we were promised something a bit more sensible. WWE can be quite juvenile, a little bit immature, so we thought we were getting the alternative, which was this like I mentioned earlier, this New Japan feel vibe to it, maybe a slight early Ring of Honor vibe, and instead we do get, like I mentioned before, Private Party doing these choreographed spots, people's limbs being worked over, but then they're jumping back up and they're doing a springboard or a super kick. That doesn't make sense. Or really weird psychology in matches, just things that need to be ironed out. Personally, I feel the good is so good that I could almost excuse the bad, but it does need to be addressed. For me, I really love Cody Rhodes, Chris Jericho, Pac, Shima, to a degree, Chris Moxley, John Moxley, Dustin Rhodes, people like that. I really, really do get an old school wrestling vibe to it, a territory vibe. But then for every old school psychology laden match that you get 10 Marco stunt matches or something like that. And again, just because it's not for me, I'm not like shitting on the product. I do really like AEW, and I've never watched an episode of Dynamite that I haven't loved, so I do like it. But there are certain things that really do just need to be smoothed out with the weird psychology and the weird crazy. People would rather see a springboard backflip poison rana that doesn't make sense. They'd rather see that than someone actually sell the leg that's just been worked over, and then have that then play out throughout the match and actually tell a story. Because what I would personally do to address this, I would have Dynamite as your old school wrestling show with your Cody Rhodes, your Jericho, your Dustin Rhodes, the MJFs, people like that tell the old school wrestling stories, and then have your B show, because TNT have just approved a B show. Have your B show for the likes of your Marco Stunt and your Private Party and your people like that, your Orange Cassidy's, because they still draw a rating, they still cause a rating spike, and they can still mix it up with those other guys, but maybe just keep all that away from the sensible stuff, because it can be jarring going from one to the other. And like, fans of the old school wrestling, but modern wrestling fans will watch modern wrestling, but they will also appreciate the old school traditional psychology wrestling. Okay, but old school fans will like the old school psychology wrestling, but they just can't get into this, Phoenix doing a crazy inverted shooting star or something. And I do like all these things. I mean, I do like a good spot fest every now and again. That ladder match between Lucha Bros and Young Bucks is my favourite ladder match ever. I like these things when used right and done right, and it doesn't take away from the main product and take you out of the bubble, and so you don't lose your you don't have to suspend your disbelief too much. Like, sometimes you watch one of those matches, someone hits a super kick with a busted leg because they've had the leg worked over, and you're like, what? Why would you try and do that? That doesn't make sense. Or someone could easily try and go for a pin, but instead of doing that, they try and do something that you wouldn't do, and it just sometimes takes you out of it a little bit. And I feel, for an example, like Kenny Omega had one of the greatest matches of all time with Kazuchika Okada, but that's because Okada was calling the match. He could have a good match with me or you. Do you know what I mean? So I think, well, too many cooks can spoil the broth a little bit. Everything that Cody and JR, to a degree Tony Khan, have been involved with on the product, I really, really enjoyed. It feels old school. It feels realistic. It doesn't insult my intelligence. Sometimes some of the things Kenny Omega and the Bucks can book sometimes feels a little bit silly, like while laughing at wrestling. Like, you can enjoy wrestling without laughing at it, and I think, like, sometimes a lot of AEW can sometimes be, isn't wrestling silly? None of this is real, wink wink, nudge nudge. And lots of insider jokes, lots of insider references. And you know what? I do pop for those insider references, and I do laugh, and I do genuinely find it funny. But the problem is it's detrimental to the product. Just because I find it funny doesn't mean that it's a good thing to have on a wrestling show. I find lots of horrible things funny. I'm a horrible person. Do you know what I mean? Like, this doesn't make sense. I mean, look at me. Like, I'm the sort of person that would find stupid stuff funny. What we need is something where you can show the product to someone who isn't a wrestling fan, and they can take it seriously and go, oh, this is cool, I'm really into this. I think AEW is getting there. They just need to iron out some of the silly billiness. Anyway, I've gone on a bit long about that. I wanted to get that off my chest. Josh has said in the comments, MJF versus Jungle Boy will be a show stealer. I don't see why not yet. Definitely could be. Two up and coming stars, two bright futures of the business. I love MJF. I think he's the only cool heel which works. A lot of the time, I'm not a fan of the cool heel. I've ranted and raved on air on the radio about how I can't stand the cool heel shtick. With the one exception to that is MJF, who I just think works. He just gets the business. He just gets wrestling. I think with that one, well, I'll talk about that one match in a minute, because I'm going to run through the card. What I would say is I have just ranted and raved a little bit about AEW in a bit of a negative light. To me, those things are only a nitpick. Overall, I am extremely happy with the product. They've got, before you can start comparing them to something like WWE, they've got a 5-year plan. So let's not compare them to WWE for 5 years yet. Let's start comparing them to the likes of Ring of Honor, MLW, maybe Pro Wrestling Noah, DDT, stuff like that. Maybe promotions in the UK, things like Riptide, ICW, promotions like Evolve, Progress. Let's start to compare them now to promotions like that, because they've got a 5-year plan. They're not going to be competition for WWE, or even remotely resembling anything like a competition to WWE for 5 years yet. So it's early doors to be start thinking, to be critiquing the product. Yeah, they need to find their feet. They need to work out what works, what doesn't work. That isn't going to be done in a year or two. It takes a while, and All Elite Wrestling are absolutely impeccable at listening to fan feedback, tweaking things, reacting to things that work and that don't work. So it is taking time, but it was always going to take time. There was always going to be Kenny Omega not selling things very well, but jumping around and pointing, pulling faces, and we were always going to get that. We were always going to get, the best friend doing the hug in the middle of the ring. We were always going to get the silliness, but wrestling, there is silliness, Some people don't like any comedy in wrestling. That's fine. NWA is my favourite wrestling product, in fact, American one anyway. I like things like MLW, but I love my All Japan Pro Wrestling and Pro Wrestling Noah. For me, it just feels like a legitimate sport. So when you get an element of comedy in that, it's very subtle and it almost makes it more funny. The comedy in AEW, it's more akin to the WWE sense of humour. Sometimes it's a bit like toilet humor-y or something like that, but I personally don't mind it as long as it doesn't overtake the seriousness, because I think we were sick of a juvenile product with WWE. That's why we wanted the alternative in AEW. So I think as long as they remember that. But they've just turned a profit this month, which I think is awesome for a big company that's had millions pumped into it. That is shocking that they've turned a profit so early. That's mental that they turned a profit so soon. So that is a kudos to those guys. Hats off to them. And it's been during a pandemic as well. So that is what we almost unheard of, in big money businesses like this that have had the finances pumped in like that. They've obviously got a long-term plan. Tony Khan is what they call a money mark, isn't he? So he, what's he put here? I wondered if they would listen to me if I asked them to fire Kenny Olivier. They probably wouldn't listen. I don't know. He is an EVP, isn't he, Josh? So they probably wouldn't respond to that. It'd probably be him answering the email. You should at him. You should tweet him, because I think they do that BT mailbag on their YouTube channel. So you should definitely send him a message and let him know what you think of him. But no, but for them to have set a profit so soon is good. And Tony Khan, he has got a long-term vision, I think. I like to think, akin to Gedo in New Japan, he maps things out years in advance. Storylines are mapped out months and months and months ahead of time. I like to think that the MJF Cody feud is like an 18-month thing that is going to play out over the course of several months, and there'll be lots of plates spinning and it will come back around. The same as the Cody Jericho feud. I don't see it's fully done yet either. So I think there's lots going on, and the feuds will interweave with each other and all come back, and there'll be like a one overarching story. I like to think there's going to be really intelligent, long-term, slow-paced storytelling. I like to think that's what they're doing. We're not going to know that for the first couple of years at least, because it will take a little while for us to work out if any of these angles are going to be gone back to again. Hey Matthew in the comments there, someone else that lives in Blythe. I didn't actually realise you were from Blythe, dude. I live in Blythe as well. I'm filming this right now in sunny Blythe in Northumberland, so cool to have someone else from that neck of the woods. I'm going to run through the card for a Double or Nothing. Like I mentioned, last year's one, it's one of my favourite pay-per-views ever. Things like Canadian Stampede in there, WrestleMania 17, lots of Wrestle Kingdoms and some old school Starcades and some old school Bunkhouse Stampedes, things like that in there. So I had a broad spectrum, a real range of different wrestling pay-per-views in my top 40, and Double or Nothing I think was number 2 next to I can't remember what was number 1 now. I can't remember what I put on my list, but Double or Nothing 1 was right up there. In fact, All Out last year probably was about the same for me. I think it almost topped it. You know, All Out, every pay-per-view I think that All Elite Wrestling have done, it's been impeccable. It's been so good. There have been obvious flaws, obvious faults, like I mentioned before. I think as long as you know you're going to get a spot fest in advance, that's fine. You know, I don't mind a nonsensical spot fest as long as that isn't encroaching on your serious matches, if that makes sense. You know, you need a little bit of everything. They call it a buffet, a smorgasbord of different wrestling styles, something for everyone. I'm all up for that. I really appreciate that, and I like that. I just don't want maybe, and I like the silly things being there. Not only do they pop a rating, it adds a bit of humour, it breaks things up, it's cool, it's wrestling, it's meant to be silly, but as long as those things don't encroach on the sensible things, and as long as the sensible things are kept visibly away from these things, we should be fine. I'm now about to talk about a pay-per-view that's featuring Broken Matt Hardy somewhere near the main event. So I sense a heel turn, Cody heel turn coming soon. There have been subtle hints in the comments there. Yeah, maybe that. I really don't want to see that because I think Cody Rhodes is the best white meat, blue-eyed babyface in the world right now. I can't think of one anywhere near as good. Drew McIntyre is very good, but he's more of a badass babyface. Kazuchika Okada, again, is more of he's brilliant, but he knows it kind of babyface. Cody Rhodes is my favourite white meat, blue-eyed babyface. I think it would be a shame to turn him heel. But yeah, I don't disagree there. There have been hints, but he's always had that weird thing about him. Whenever he's a babyface, he does do things like occasionally push his wife in front of him so he doesn't get hit, or he does occasionally do the odd thing where he will snap and he will grab the tights or something. But it's all laden into the match. It's all there for a reason. There's usually lots of psychology and there's lots of storyline, in-ring storyline reasons and tropes in there to explain why he's acting the way he is, which I like. But yeah, absolutely, we could see a Cody heel turn. I don't want to see that though. I'm going to run through the card for Double or Nothing. So in the pre-show, it's Private Party versus the Best Friends. Okay, so I've already ranted and raved about how this isn't my personal cup of tea. If I'm going to watch a tag team match, I want to watch Dick the Bruiser and the Crusher versus, you know, someone like the Texas Outlaws, somebody like that. I want to watch Dick Slater. I want to watch, you know, the Fabulous Kangaroos. I want to watch the Von Brauners. I want to watch, you know, I like my old school wrestling. I want to watch the British Bulldogs. You know, that's my kind of tag team wrestling. I want to watch all Japan when you know, things like Bruiser Brody, and Stan Hansen. We'll get on to Brody Lee in a bit though. I want to watch that sort of tag team. So this isn't my cup of tea, but I'm not shitting on it. I'm going to be highly entertained from this match. I expect it to be a spot fest, and I want it to be a spot fest. It's going to have the silly string move and that crazy gin and juice. It's going to have the crazy hug in the middle. Lots of silliness and lots of crazy mind-blowing spots. As long as it doesn't detract too much from the psychology, I'm okay with crazy silly dives and backflips and poison runners and whatnot in this match. Reason for that is it's on the pre-show, and I want the casual fan to be channel hopping to see that and go, what is this crazy backflip, spinny, crazy Cirque du Soleil on steroids? They're not on steroids, but you know what I mean. Just madness in the ring. I love it. I'm going to buy the pay-per-view. I think if you're going to entice and hook a casual fan in, seeing things like Mark Quinn and Trent Beretta, definitely is going to hook people in. Trent Beretta, aka Greg Marashulo, one of my favourite guys on the undercard. This guy, it can be, he is an asset to the company. Now they've got that TNT championship for the mid card. I want to see him have a lengthy run with that. I want to see this guy excel. I really, really am a big fan and a big advocate of Trent Beretta. I can't say the same for Chuck Taylor, unfortunately. It just doesn't do it for me. I don't get what he's supposed to be. Not a fan of his in-ring work. If you dig him, cool. That's fine. Just not my personal cup of tea. But I mean, I'm looking forward to this match for being an exciting, fun spot fest. I thought the ladder match was going to be on the pre-show, but apparently not. But it's the casino ladder match. So it's a multi-man ladder match where you grab like a giant chip, like a gambling chip from the ring, and that then allows you to get a title shot later. So it's nothing like Money in the Bank where you can cash it in when you want. It's a pre-designated title shot. It's just a regular #1 contendership ladder match, which we've seen before in wrestling, but it's not like a Money in the Bank alternative or anything like that at all. Really wish I'd have brought a glass of water in with me now, because my throat is as dry as Gandhi's flip-flop, so not good. But yeah, this ladder match is drawn quite a lot of attention, and the reason for that is because it's got a mystery entrant to it. We don't know who it's going to be, so it's going to be the ladder match. 2 wrestlers start, they can climb up and grab the chip, but every designated amount of time another wrestler enters, so it could all end before the final wrestler comes in. It probably won't, but yeah, definitely it's definitely interesting to see, almost like a gauntlet match, but it's with the ladders. It's going to be a bit weird. The participants are Darby Allin, one of the biggest up-and-coming stars in wrestling at the minute, former world champion Colt Cabana, the aforementioned Orange Cassidy, one of the best luchadors in the world, one of the best, if you're into your crazy junior heavyweight spot fest mental matches, this guy's for you. It's Rey Fenix. You're going to have a blink and you'll miss it. It's going to be something fun with him involved. Scorpio Sky, who they are very subtly pushing as a serious mid-card singles wrestler as well as tag team wrestler. He's the first ever tag team champion, but he's also got victories over the likes of Chris Jericho. They're doing singles vignettes for him to sort of, drill home that this guy isn't to be reckoned with. I think if anyone goes off to become a big single star, it could well be Scorpio Sky. Kip Sabian, again, classic from the UK scene. He was part of the world of sport. Any UK fans will know him from the UK independent scene. Really, really fun to watch in the ring. Also got Frankie Kazarian, one of the most exciting, fast-paced veterans going. Very similar to sort of Scorpio Sky. He's in the same stable as him, SCU. Kazarian's also had a lengthy singles career before this as well. Luchasaurus is the other competitor. The fun, wacky element of wrestling. He thinks he's a dinosaur. He's like, basically, it's if you mix Brodus Clay and Kane, I don't know, but maybe he doesn't dance, but he's a big dinosaur. It's fun. Wrestling's supposed to be fun, and to be announced. Now, to be announced, it's got a few people wondering, because available, and I'm not saying I think any of these guys are going to be there, but available for the show is former NWA TV champion Ricky Starks, former Impact Wrestling World Heavyweight Champion Brian Cage. We think, but we're not sure, that Jeff Cobb could potentially be available. Obviously a former IWGP Never Openweight Champion, former multiple-time 15-time World Heavyweight Champion Sting, former WWE Cruiserweight Champion and also decorated Evolve Wrestling wrestler Drew Gulak, also wrestled in Shikara as well, as far as I'm aware, and both members of FTR, the Revolt, as well. Do I think it's going to be any of those guys? I'm not too sure. It could be Christopher Daniels, couldn't it? Or it could be Jimmy Havoc, who knows? or Luther or somebody. I think, as they've teased it for so long, it's probably going to have to be somebody who isn't a part of the active roster, as they could have just announced it, and it'll be a bit of a damp squib. It'll be a bit of a letdown if it was literally like anybody a part of the roster, like Christopher Daniels. I think if anybody on that list, it could be anybody. I know Drew Gulak wants to go back to WWE, and his agent, Matt Bloom is A-Train, isn't it, Albert? Barry Bloom is the name of Drew Gulak's agent. He is negotiating with WWE for him to come back. So we think maybe Drew Gulak wants WWE, but could we see him, do that and disappear off to All Elite? Quite possibly. I don't know. I kind of want to see Drew Gulak in AEW because, as we've seen in the last few weeks of SmackDown, he can go hell for leather. He's a superb wrestler, one of the best assets that SmackDown had. I don't see any reason why he couldn't get a serious push in AEW. I kind of want to see Ricky Starks, though. I kind of want to see Ricky Starks because he's going to be missed in NWA, and I want to see him go and become a big star. Josh in the comments says, but Cody's character is a sociopath. He manipulates people and surrounds himself with popular acts. The Elite, for example. The signs are all there. I love him as a face and a heel. He's my boy. Yeah, do you know what? He is a brilliant heel. He is one of the best heels. He is so good. But for me, I haven't got my fill of this babyface Cody yet. Could mean that heel turn is even more impactful. Could be even more venomous, even more potent when he does turn heel. I want to see another 4 or 5 years of babyface Cody. I don't know. I don't want to see it yet, but he does work as a heel. I'm not, so it is something that does work. I just want to see more of this. The MJF feud has got at least 18 months left in it yet. At least 18 months. So I don't want to see, and there's by no means come to an end as far as I can tell. So I want to see more long-term story. I think the problem with AEW is people are conditioned to see I think the MJF heel turn was rushed. They did it back at what's the thing with the cogs? Full Gear. I would have probably done that at Double or Nothing now. So I would have still had MJF as Cody's sidekick, tag team partner, friend, all the way up until now, all the way up until Double or Nothing. I like slow build, long-term stories laden in storylines, and I think they rushed that heel turn. So I would rather see this play out now over the space of the next 18 months, 2 years, before we get the big payoff. But yes, if I do think anyone's a surprise entrant, could be Brian Cage. I think he's still injured. I want it to be, let's say Drew Gulak, because it's definitely not going to be Sting, is it? Who do I think is going to win the actual match? I both want this person to win, and I think they will. I think it's going to be Darby Allin. I think he is the equivalent to Jeff Hardy in the year 2000, where he is just this on fire, up and coming, crazy kind of dark brooding character that does these crazy moves, that's down with the kids, everyone loves him, and he's just going to work his way up. It's like his feud with Cody, where he can never quite beat Cody. If they have him beat Cody in the next 6 months, it's rushed. You need to tell this story over time for it to mean anything. Maybe at Double or Nothing next year, or All Out, or maybe at Full Gear right at the end of the year, you finally have him beat Cody. If you do it any time sooner, it's just rushed. It doesn't mean anything, and it needs to be nurtured. Okay, so the main card, we did have Britt Baker versus Chris Statlander. I think that match is probably cancelled or postponed due to Britt Baker's nasty injury on Dynamite, which is a shame. But yeah, two people that I would say personally need work. Definitely more so Britt Baker than Chris Statlander. I want to see just Britt Baker keep being nurtured. I think she oozes potential, but it's potential. She will be a big star, but she's not. I think she just needs a lot more work, a lot more. What she needs is a system, a bit like NXT really. She just needs nurturing. I don't think she's got, for me personally, I don't think she's got basics down. I personally don't think. I think she needs a lot more work, personally, from what I enjoy from professional wrestling. So we'll move on from that. We've got Dustin Rhodes versus Shawn Spears with Tully Blanchard supposedly in his corner. The battle of the mid cards, is really, isn't it? This one. Two of my favourite people on All Elite Wrestling. Dustin Rhodes, one of my favourite wrestlers ever of all time. In the 140-year of history of wrestling, Dustin Rhodes is right near the top of my list. Shawn Spears is great. Loved his stuff. You know, going back, you've got Florida Championship Wrestling stuff in NXT. He was really, really good when it slowed down. I think Shawn Spears needs the victory more than Dustin Rhodes. I think Shawn Spears has probably lost more than he's won this year. I might be wrong, but I would say he probably, in order to take Shawn Spears seriously as a legitimate threat, let's have him beat Dustin Rhodes here. And I like what both people are doing. I love the Tully Blanchard manager. Tully Blanchard manager thing. I'm really, really into that at the moment. It just adds an extra dynamic, doesn't it, having him there? Because he was such a good heel. Tully Blanchard, when he was United States champion, he was such a good heel. We've also got on our little list for the no disqualification match for the Women's World Championship, Nyla Rose versus Hikaru Shida. I think Shida is one of the best wrestlers in all of wrestling, male or female. Very, very good. I'm a huge fan of hers. I'm a massive Shida mark. Always have been, always will be. I really want Shida to come out of this looking really strong, but I think she should be put over in defeat, which is a shame for me to say because she's a much better wrestler than Nyla Rose. I think she's got everything down better than Nyla. And I do like Nyla, don't get me wrong. I just think that Shida is a better wrestler. So you might be asking me, well, if I think Shida's like right up here and Nyla's like down here, then why do I want Nyla to win? That doesn't make sense. The reason being is because they've just not long put the title on her, but they have. It was at the beginning of the year, but they haven't used her much since because of the coronavirus. And I think Nyla Rose is somebody that's always going to be there all the time. She is a big personality. She's somebody that a lot of people are talking about, somebody that everybody knows who she is. People might be like, oh, the fact that she is transgender, the fact that she is an African American, Native American, the fact that she's a big, brutal powerhouse, lots of different reasons why people are talking about her. You don't have to be the best wrestler in the world to be over as a world champion. Always, you can have situations where a wrist lock is more effective than a moonsault in terms of what the viewer's watching. I think with Nyla Rose, you need to build her up as this monstrous, unstoppable, nasty heel, and then you have someone defeat her for the title. I actually think that person should be Shida. I just don't think there's any heat in it at the minute because Nyla's just had the title. She hasn't. If Nyla needs to go on for at least another 6 months, destroying everybody, and then Shida gets the win, because at the minute it doesn't really mean anything if Shida gets the win because there's not been enough story told. It's rushed. So let's have Shida lose by the skin of her teeth but get over in defeat, and then you tell a story where Nyla goes undefeated for a long time, weave the story round in an intelligent way where this time maybe at Full Gear at the end of the year Shida gets the rematch. You can play off the match they've had now at Double or Nothing, telling story in the ring, but this time Shida gets the victory and it'll mean so much more. It'll be great. And then Shida can be the champion forever because she's brilliant. Next match on the list is, and I'm trying to put it in some sort of sensible order, not the order on Wikipedia because it's not very accurate. MJF versus Jungle Boy. We obviously have talked about that briefly earlier. So I personally want to see MJF win this one, just because I think he needs to be built up. He's a big future star. He's got the world ahead of him. I'd personally be, and I think they need to build to the rematch with Cody at the end of the year. So I would want to be keeping MJF really strong. At the same time, Jungle Boy, I think, is another future massive star of the company. So whoever loses, just like the match before, needs to get over in defeat. You could get away with Jungle Boy winning and having something where MJF can never beat Jungle Boy. Even in 3 years' time when he's in the main events, he still can't ever beat Jungle Boy. You could do something there. And MJF at this stage can afford to lose to Jungle Boy, but he shouldn't have to. And if he shouldn't have to, let's have MJF win this one. I think Jungle Boy needs the victory a bit more. So maybe let's have something where Jungle Boy's got the match won. Wardlow causes MJF to win. Luchasaurus comes out to make the save after the match. The stare down between the two leads to a tag match later down the line. MJF and Wardlow versus the Jurassic Experience, something like that. All Elite Wrestling are pretty good at not doing screw finishes. I don't like screw finishes, so I don't know why I just pitched one. You've got to, again, it's their job to tell the story really, but you can do it without turning a screwy finish. One thing I would like to see is Mike Chioda come to AEW, because the refereeing, it can be a bit off-putting where sometimes they won't count wrestlers out when they're on the outside of the ring. Obvious disqualifications aren't, and I get the fact that in high-stakes match, when it's a tournament final or a championship match or a blood feud, the referee will be a little bit more lenient, like they are in Japan, where they might say someone uses a weapon and they're like, hey, don't do that again. If you do it again, I'm going to disqualify you, but I'll allow it this once. Or when they're on the outside of the ring, they might count a little slower because they know it's a high-stakes match. I get that, but it's commentary's job to get that over clearly, and I don't think that's always necessarily done. Why is the referee not counting? Why is the referee turning a blind eye? Things like that. So, yeah, you know, I wouldn't mind just seeing that locked down a little bit. The next match on the card I'm going to talk about is the crazy one. It's the Stadium Stampede match, which is the Elite, but in this case, Matt Hardy's replacing Cody Rhodes because he's in a different match later that we'll talk about, taking on the Inner Circle. I think this is going to be very much like the street fight that we saw on Dynamite a couple of weeks ago, where they're going to be sprawling across the stadium, claiming on things, jumping off of crazy things. If you didn't like that street fight, you're not probably going to like this. Will it be cinematic? I don't think so. I think it'll be more like the match between Moxley and Hager, where it's not cinematic, but it's a sprawling match that takes you around the setting. I think it's going to be wacky. I think it's going to be crazy. I think we're going to get some broken brilliance. Will we get FTR, the revival in there somewhere? Maybe, because I think they might turn up at this show. They're certainly working an angle. They're definitely working a program with the Young Bucks at the minute. Maybe what we're going to get is in the tag match, or a tag team. Maybe when tag teams are out throughout the night, we might get them debut there, and then they tell a story where they work their way to the Young Bucks match. Or alternatively, you introduce them here in this match straight away, and that's straight into a feud with the Young Bucks straight away. I don't know, but if you're going to get FTR at the pay-per-view, it's going to be probably against the Young Bucks, isn't it? How I would book this, and I know I do sometimes slag off 50-50 bookings, so I'm going to try and work around that. I would have Matt Hardy pin Chris Jericho, and then the Elite get the victory, and then afterwards you can do something with the Revolt if they're there. And then that will lead to a singles match at your next pay-per-view, whether it's Fighter Fest or Fight for the Fallen or whatever it might be in spring or in summer. You have a singles match, Hardy, Jericho. This time, Jericho gets the victory over Matt Hardy, but by cheating, doesn't get it clean. And then you do the blow-off match later down the line. Whoever wins, I don't really care. But I want to see at least that bit. I want to see the beginning of the feud with the setup and then the big singles match. Whoever wins the blow-off match later down the line, I don't really care. You could leave it with just Hardy getting the pinfall here and then Jericho getting the pinfall at the next pay-per-view. But that's 50-50 booking. Most people would like to see a rubber match. So that's what I personally would like to see. Out of all the feud between the Inner Circle and the Elite, the two that are really going head-to-head in a loggerhead at the minute seems to be Jericho and Matt Hardy. So for that reason, I want to see some storyline progression between the two parties there. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun, this match. It's going to be the AEW style. It's going to be a love it or hate it match. It's going to be like Marmite. I can see a lot of people hating on this match. I see costume changes. I see silliness. I hope we don't get too much Young Bucks silliness. Like, you know, they did Matt Jackson versus Nick Jackson on their YouTube channel recently. I hope it was not. I don't mind the silliness there on that. I laughed. I thought it was funny. I even shared the video. It was stupid. He was laughing at wrestling, which I didn't like, but it did make me laugh. But I don't want to see that on the pay-per-view. I do not want to see any of that humour, any inside wink, wink, nudge, nudge, ha ha, look at wrestling, ha ha, any of that in this match at all, because it will take me out of it. I don't think that's too much to ask. It's to take the product seriously. Let's just hope we get sensible selling, a little bit of psychology. But if it isn't, who cares? Because it's always going to be. This is always going to be silly, isn't it? We're not expecting Karl Gotch. We're not expecting, you know, any of the classics. We're not expecting Misawa, Kobashi, Kawada. We're not expecting anything like that. We're expecting broken Matt Hardy, and will we see a new Vanguard one magically repaired? Something like that. Who knows? Could we see anyone debut in this? Something like Sting? Could we see Gulak here, FTR here? I don't know. But I think we might get another storyline progression with the dissension between the Elite, and obviously Hangman Page is a part of that, and he's going off into his own way. But it's slowly telling that story of him falling out with the rest of the Elite, distancing himself. Let's add another little nudge in that direction in this match. Nothing obvious like a heel turn, just another little thing that makes the audience go, you know, show, don't tell. And don't spell it out for the audience like WWE do and treat the audience like a fool. Let the audience come to their own conclusion where after the pay-per-view they're like, hey, did you see that thing with Hangman and Kenny where they look like they weren't quite on the same page for that bit? Layer this story, please. Don't do something ham-fisted like WWE would do. But I do want to see the story progressed. Also on the card, we have got the tournament final for the All Elite Wrestling TNT Championship. Cody Rhodes with Arn Anderson versus Lance Archer with Jake the Snake Roberts. And presenting the championship to the winner is Iron Mike Tyson, boxing legend. Okay, so this is going to be great. You've got a very clear heel and face dynamic, unstoppable monster heel versus the blue-eyed white meat babyface. Both with respective managers in their corners. It just tells story writes itself. I love Lance Archer. I've loved him since he debuted. I think it was 2003 for TNA when he was Lance Hoyt, or he was called Dallas back then. When he was Kid Cash's kayfabe cousin. Followed his career very closely ever since. Loved everything he's done. I think worked with Cody before, but never had a singles match. I think they were together in developmental. I think it's Florida Championship Wrestling. They've been together in New Japan Pro Wrestling, so these two know each other well. Never had a singles match. He is 41, 42, something like that. Doesn't bother me. You look at Bill Eadie, one of the greatest wrestlers of all time, the masked superstar, flawless and faultless in every way imaginable. He didn't actually join Demolition until he was in his 40s. If you look at Big Daddy, the most popular wrestling superstar from Britain ever, he didn't actually start his Big Daddy shtick until he was in his 40s. And yes, I know he was very limited, not very mobile in the ring, but still, the most over wrestler in UK history didn't start his shtick until he was in his 40s either. So, don't let his age put you off. I'm really, really into this. Like we were saying on air the other day, though, I think if they'd have just had another month, it would have made so much more difference, because another he's coming as this unstoppable monster heel character. But the issue is, can he now afford a loss so quickly? What I think they should have done is in an ideal perfect world, he would have come in maybe a month sooner, because Double or Nothing will be about 55 days of him being on TV. A lot of people are saying that's too soon for him to have a defeat. Personally, I don't think it is. I think Cody is going to win, and I want Cody to win. I think the championship will mean so much more if Cody Rhodes was the inaugural champion than if Lance Archer was the inaugural champion. Cody Rhodes is a future AEW World Champion, despite any stipulations that are in place at the minute. I think he's the face of the business. I think he's going to go on to be their equivalent to John Cena or whatever, the big top star. I think in history, in 30 years' time, if you look back and see Cody Rhodes was the first champion, it's going to mean more than if Lance Archer was. Nothing against Lance. So I think he is going to, by the skin of his teeth, beat Lance. And just like I mentioned before, getting over in his loss. I think Lance is just going to lose, but he's going to beat Cody to a pulp. It's going to be really close. Lots of gasping moments where signature moves get kicked out of, which I don't mind as long as it's laden in psychology and not just done for the sake of popping the people watching at home. It's when things don't happen for a reason. Like we had Cody Rhodes' Crossroads get kicked out of on Dynamite the other week. Why kick out of his finisher? It didn't make sense. It seemed nonsensical to do it. I don't think that's going to happen in this, in terms of nonsensical things, but I do think we're going to see the Crossroads kicked out of, maybe the blackout kicked out of, the claw. And if you're going to have all that happen, the near falls and the shock, oh my god, he kicked out, let's have it here in this match, because it's a high stakes match and both guys are pretty damn over. Like I said, I would have liked Archer to have had another maybe month or two of being the undefeated unstoppable monster, but if he has to have a convincing competitive loss here and then he's undefeated for another month afterwards or another 2 months afterwards, it's alright, he can bounce back from this. Cody doesn't win as much as you think he does. I think Cody needs to win more. I think Mike Tyson is going to knock out Jake Roberts, and maybe Lance Archer too. I want to see him punch Sammy Guevara, but I don't think he will. But I think maybe you'll have something maybe where Archer provokes Mike Tyson and Mike Tyson eventually knocks out Lance Archer. But I think we're going to get a feel-good moment. Cody Rhodes on the turnbuckle, championship high, confetti coming down. And I think we're going to get that feel-good moment, I think. I've picked a lot of baby faces, haven't I? I've just realised. Why not? Why not? I think Nyla's going to win. She's a heel. I think Shawn Spears is going to win. He's a heel. And maybe if they replace Britt Baker with another heel, the other heel might win against Chris Statlander, perhaps. Maybe do Big Swole or somebody. I know she's a baby face, but and MJF, I think he's going to win. So there will be some heel victories. In a very similar situation where Brody Lee is in a similar situation to Lance Archer, where you've got this big heel that's just come in, they're a big unstoppable monster, and they really probably shouldn't be losing just yet. In a similar vein to that, you've got Brody Lee, who has also come in, big unstoppable monster heel, not so much a monster, he's calm and collected, but he's got that big unstoppable big guy shtick about him. Shouldn't really be losing a match just yet, because if you've either just debuted, or you've just turned heel, or you have just recently formed a new stable, that is a guarantee for you winning at the pay-per-view. So 3 reasons really why Brody Lee should be winning this match. Unfortunately, I don't think he will. I think they're going to keep it on Moxley here. And it's not too soon for Brody Lee to be winning the title. Look, it's Sid in WWF. He came in and won the title, no one complained. You can come in quickly to a promotion and win the championship. It's not too soon for Brody Lee to win the title. It's just far too soon for them to be taking it off of Moxley. I think he's the answer to Stone Cold Steve Austin. I think the championship will be radically devalued if it's hot potatoed around, I think. And I don't really like championship reigns to last bare minimum of 9 months, really. I think we've been preconditioned by WWE and WCW and everything like that. A reign should be at least a year, in my opinion. To me, your champion is the face of your company. You should change your champion when you change your company logo, in my opinion. Look at the greats, Lou Thez, Ricky Dozan, people like that. They had championships for years. Bruno Sammartino. That to me makes a championship mean something. The only reason why the WWE championship means a thing is because of Bruno's reign and because of Hulk Hogan's reign. The hot potatoing that title around will devalue it radically. I think it is probably too soon for Brody Lee to be losing, but I think he probably should. As with Lance Archer, if he gets over in defeat, has a highly competitive match, and he just loses by the skin of his teeth, and then he doesn't take another loss for the next 3 months, there's no reason why he can't bounce back from that. With clever storytelling and with commentary, getting things over, and with telling the story properly, he can bounce back from that. I just think Moxley is the Steve Austin of the company. He needs to have a lengthy run in front of an audience. So I'm not even counting Moxley's run until the audience is back. So I think you don't want to be thinking about taking that title off of him anytime soon. I actually think it was way too soon to have taken it off of Jericho, let alone taking it off the person who took it off Jericho. That's just my respect for the business and respect for what I'm watching. But yeah, Moxley's really good. Brody Lee's great. Got this history going back to CZW. Obviously, they were together at NXT, together on Raw, SmackDown. They've been all over the place together. So to see these two here, they've got great chemistry. Another person who could debut in the I'm going off track here. I just thought another person that could debut in that ladder match is Chris Hero, formerly Cassius Ohno, because he was an NXT wrestler when he was released. Therefore, he had no 90-day compete clause. Just something to bear in mind. I'll run through that again in a bit though. But yeah, I really want to see this one go, and it'd be brutal with rich stiff clotheslines and maybe a spot of colour, a bit of blood, something like that. But I think Moxley retains by the skin of his teeth here in this match. But it's going to be great. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really high on All Elite Wrestling, and I know I did sort of slag off with some of the things, some of the tropes that they do. These are just nitpicks from me. I love AEW. I'm an AEW fan. I just want them to take it a little bit more seriously. But then again, all the silly stuff or the stupid stuff does kind of pop a rating, so maybe just do it but keep it separate from the stuff that I like. So just to say again, some of the people that could turn up: FTR, that's the Revival, Drew Gulak, Sting, Brian Cage, Ricky Starks, Chris Hero, formerly Cassius Ohno. We could see any of those guys turn up. Do I think any of them will? I don't know. Thing is, with the Revival, you really want a crowd there for that, but we might not have them for months yet, and they're ready to go. They've got the theme music, the new gear, the trademarks ready to go. So if any of them are there, let's say it's the Revival, and I kind of want to see Ricky Starks as well. Sting, I'd love to see him in AEW. I want him personally. I'd like his last match to be in NWA, where just finish where you started, kind of thing, come full circle. But if he's an All Elite Wrestling, he is a figure kind of like what Bret Hart was, where he just come out to present something. That's cool. I would like to see Sting as a part of a championship committee like we had previously in AEW, where there were 3 legends and they were just critiquing the match. So if it went to a time limit draw, they would announce the winner at the end. I think you had Great Muta was one of them. I can't remember who the others were, but I know Great Muta was definitely one of them, because I was like, wow, it's Muta, I love him. And maybe have Sting as somebody like that, where he'll judge matches, come out, just like how Lou Thesz and Pat O'Connor and Terry Funk used to back in the late 1980s. But maybe have Sting wrestle twice a year, something like that. I wouldn't mind it. I think it would be more of an asset than a detraction, personally. I'm just gutted we didn't get to see Sting versus Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns. We did see him versus Seth, sorry, didn't we? Obviously we did. But Dean Ambrose, we didn't see him wrestle. Kevin Owens, Sheamus, The Undertaker. We didn't get all the matches that we wanted to see out of Sting in WWE. So I'm really gutted about that. But maybe he was never a WWE guy, was it? So we've got what we've got here with him in AEW. Maybe, who knows? Brian Cage, I thought, was still injured. Don't know what Jeff Cobb's doing. Who knows? I think we're going to get Tyson knock out Lance Archer. They've had a brilliant first year. It's a shame. I think Shima is still caught in Japan, isn't he? So he can't come over. Shame, because he was one of the best. I can't think of anything else to say really about this pay-per-view, other than I'm really looking forward to it. Definitely going to buy it. Definitely going to order it. I'm going to get the some chicken wings in. I'm going to sit there with a whiskey and coke, and I'm going to sit back and enjoy All Elite Wrestling for what it is. Sometimes it can be a little bit silly, but it is wrestling. Sometimes wrestling is a little bit silly. I think the fact they've only been around, if you really count the product starting in October for weekly TV, it was announced in January last year. TV started in October last year. First pay-per-view May of last year. They are way ahead of where they should be on their 5-year plan. Leaps and bounds ahead of where they should be on their 5-year plan. So this is great. Turn a profit already. Rome wasn't built in a day. They're not going to be comparable to WWE for at least another 4 years, probably 5 or 6 years. So stop trying to compare it to what you see on Raw and SmackDown. It's in terms of position, because it's not going to, I think, compare them to the likes of Shakira and Dragon Gate and MLW, things like that. I think they're going to get to where it's going to be more like that. And I think they are, I expect they were forecast to do this. And what they've actually done is like that, which is great. They've really, TNT are absolutely ecstatic with them. That's why they've been offered a secondary B show. Turn a profit already. It's good stuff. And just because certain stuff doesn't appeal to me, doesn't mean it's not over with the rest of the audience. So I'm not shitting on anything. But that's my thoughts and opinions on Double or Nothing 2. I am buzzing for this. I hope you guys are too. Let me know what you think. Do you like the overly choreographed spot festy style, or the more psychology, old school wrestling style that you might see from maybe the likes of MJF, Cody, that kind of thing? Let me know in the comments if you like this video, or if you took anything from it. It'd mean the world to us if you could share it and just let other people see it as well. I know it's a bit of a lengthy one. Sometimes I feel the lengthy ones have the most substance. So this is live on Facebook at the minute. It's shortly to be uploaded to our Twitch and to our YouTube channel as well. So keep your eyes posted on there. I've been the resident horror punk of Spanish Announce Table, Lucas Chappell, and I hope you all enjoy Double or Nothing as much as I'm hopefully going to. Catch you later, guys.